Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTC geocodes, including the latest Sec Fusion Strike, make sure you check out the Poketown store where you can use code Omnipoke for a 5% discount on your order. Today we're going to be doing a first impressions video. Battle Legion was officially revealed this morning, the next set coming out in Japan. And it's coming out in February, so about a month away, I think a few days. And it's going to feature 67 cards, so it's a bit smaller than a usual set, but it looks like it will likely set up part of our May set or part of the special June set coming out here over in the West. Battle Legion will introduce a new type of Pokemon called Sparkling Pokemon. As the name implies, they're shiny with sparkling in the name. They're powerful basic Pokemon, so you can only include one in your deck. So these are essentially like Gold Star Pokemon, which is really, really interesting because it's been a while since we've had this kind of mechanic. They have a special texture, feature a nice new reverse hollow pattern. So yeah, Battle Legion will be a special set, a bit like Legendary Heartbeat, which introduced amazing rares. Each booster pack includes 6 cards, and we'll be getting our special set in June, so it will probably include the cards from this set. So yeah, I think there's still a chance that this kind of stuff will come out in May with our regular release, but we'll find out. But anyway, let's jump straight into it, and I'm actually going to jump all the way down here to some very exciting trainers. Not that really they affect anything because they're very type specific, but either way, we like to look at trainers first. The first of which is Gusty Pickaxe, which says reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a fighting energy attached to one of your benched Pokemon, otherwise reveal it to your opponent and put it into your hand. So this is straight up just a draw one, which is really good because a lot of people do have the mindset that if you can play just a straight up draw one, you would, because it reduces the size of your deck to 56 cards, which typically means you're going to find the things you want more consistently. Typically, these kind of decks, these kind of cards haven't always been great. Judge's Whistle is the first one that comes to mind that some people decided to play, but it never was used as like a 4 of and everything, just to lower or just to make your deck become a 50 card deck. Basically, it was only used in a couple of niche scenarios, and that's typically because the value of one less card in your deck is not as valuable as actually having the resources from playing the card itself, playing an extra card itself, and what that card can do. So typically it's not, this kind of effect hasn't just meant that everyone plays this as like a just reducing your deck size to 56 cards. Interestingly, what's wrapped in with this though is fighting energy acceleration, which is really interesting. We don't actually have any fighting energy acceleration right now, or any super accessible fighting energy acceleration off the top of my head. I know we have things like Colossal and stuff, but I don't think we have anything too good outside of Colossal. There's like Turbo Patch that's general acceleration, but this is specific to fighting. To get the fighting energy on top, we have things like Oranguru, Switch Cups, Rotom Phone. So there are a couple of ways we can get the fighting energy to the top. So I actually could see this being a fighting energy sort of energy acceleration in a fighting deck. I think Oranguru has seen play for far worse reasons. So already having that access to that as a draw engine is pretty cool. Oranguru and Rotom Phones has kind of been a thing always. So you can, when you don't have access to the Gusty Pickaxe or whatever, sorry, Gutsy, not Gusty. When you don't have access to the Pickaxe, you can just Rotom Phone your favourite card to the top and just draw it with Oranguru anyway. So I actually think this can be a pretty interesting energy acceleration for fighting types. Obviously, this is limited to 4. So you can only use this 4 times, so you can only accelerate 4 energy, so we're probably going to have to pair it either with something that can maybe use double turbo or something like that, or just an attacker that doesn't, a relatively low maintenance attacker that doesn't need too much energy. Just because you're not going to be able to get loads of energy into play with this, it's limited to 4 per game outside of getting these pickaxes back. So you do have to keep these things in mind when deck building, but I think regardless it is very important to consider, because I think it actually is a decent option for fighting decks. Like I say, the Oranguru package has been used in far worse situations, so being able to play that is never particularly a downside, and on top of that you can get some energy acceleration, which is really cool. Then there's a load of reprints, but the most notable one is this one right here. This is Dark Patch from back in like 2013, 2014 it was released, maybe even earlier, maybe 2012 actually. Dark Patch basically is Metal Saucer but for Dark types, for anyone that doesn't know. This was a huge card back in the day because it really boosted Darkrai's viability, and there's a new Darkrai in this set that looks to be pretty viable. Well, looks to potentially be pretty viable at least. And yeah, it looks really, really strong. Just having Dark Patch back is great in a format with Ultra Ball and stuff as well. We've seen how well Metal Saucer has done, and that's had Quick Ball and Research. Metal Saucer, I think, becomes a little bit better because we have Ultra Ball. I still don't know whether it's going to overtake this, like a Turbo Genesect would overtake a Fusion Strike deck. But having Dark Acceleration in a format with Ultra Ball, Quick Ball, Research, all that kind of stuff, means that this is going to be super live all the time. And yeah, more Dark support means hopefully this is another thorn in Mew's side, because a lot of people really don't like Mew, so this could be another reason to be pushing Mew down the tier list, because we do have a great partner for this as well. Dark feels like there's actually a lot of ways to get a lot of energy on the board right now. You have Dark Patch, you have Moltres, you have Baby Moltres. So yeah, there's quite a lot of ways to boost energy onto the board. So I think you can be doing quite a lot of damage. We've seen Turbo Dark not do too well in Standard when it was last printed on Greninja and Zoroark tag team. But spoilers, this is going to be on Darkrai VSTAR, which is a 2-prizer with 280 HP rather than a 3-prizer with 250 HP. And also, spoiler, it has double Junk Hunt as its V-Star power, so you can just get 2 of these back, which is an immediate plus 60 whenever you want. So I definitely think you can boost into some really, really high numbers with this deck. You also have access to things like Eternatus as well, which this helps energy acceleration with. At the moment, Eternatus has to play Moltres E-Switch. Eternatus isn't like particularly favourable right now, but Dark Patch existing is a great thing. So it's only going to increase the viability of Eternatus in all... Well, theoretically, so yeah, you don't have to play the kind of scuffed Moltres E-Switch to dodge all of the hammers that are going on right now. So yeah, Dark Patch, a great reprint, one that I'm quite surprised to see, but you know, I'm all for it. Why not? Let's really mix things up. So yeah, we'll get to those super exciting cards shortly, but first we're gonna jump straight back up to the top where we've got a Litwick. Litwick just has discard the top card from your opponent's deck, which is pretty interesting. The Lampent doesn't do too much, but it's pretty interesting because the Chandelure also has an ability, Mountain Burner, during your turn. When you play this card to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may discard the top 3 cards from your opponent's deck. So, toppling wind style effects like Rhyperior and Aggron have never been like phenomenal. They've never been top tier outside of very, very memey kind of decks. But, you know, I don't mind seeing it again. I think mill strategies are actually a lot more interesting interesting for other players than control strategies, because you still get to play the game, and it really is a different, like, you're not stopping the opponent playing the game in such an in the same oppressive way that control is. You're just kind of manipulating the game and getting rid of their resources, which makes people play, think harder and play differently, which is interesting. So I don't mind seeing mill back. I don't think it's going to be particularly strong, but we do have things like Rare Candy, well, we do have Rare Candy, but Scoop Up Net and stuff, to be able to reuse this, which was sometimes one of the issues with these kind of decks. You basically didn't... You could only mill 12 cards, and even with all of the hyper aggressive supporters right now, because the deck doesn't really do anything outside of mill those cards, a lot of decks could just set up an attacker and just start plowing through the Chandelures. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't think it's going to be particularly impactful, but I don't mind seeing it again. Also for Cube, it's really interesting, just because I think Chandelure is already one of the a very interesting Cube card right now, a very interesting Cube Pokemon. There's a lot of really cool Chandelures out there. So adding another one that's a little bit annoying, but like even so, we've seen Aggron and Rhyperior do interesting stuff in Cubes as well. So yeah, I don't mind it for Cube. Starmie V is the first V Pokemon we'll take a look at, with 190 HP basic, weak to lightning. Swift does 50 damage for 2 colorless, and this attack's damage isn't affected by weakness, resistance, or any other effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So it's basically shred, but also ignores weakness and resistance. Not too strong for 50 damage, especially when you see 2 energy right now. You look to you look towards double turbo, right? So that's actually 30 damage in this case, so you have to not use double turbo, which is kind of awkward. Energy Spiral is a little bit more interesting. For double water, does 50 damage times the number of energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon in play. We've just seen how Dark Patch, I don't even know whether I said what Dark Patch did. If I didn't, Dark Patch lets you attach a dark energy from your discard pile to one of your bench discard Pokemon. It's basically Metal Saucer, but for darks. Yeah. If things like Turbo Dark and some of these other fire decks and things like that are particularly popular, where they get a lot of energy in play, this attack is a little bit more premium. I think it's basically only like Turbo Dark though that's going to have enough energy in play for Energy Spiral to be doing an amount of damage that is worth talking about. And I'm pretty sure it's not worth playing. It may be like a random one-off tech, right, in some Melanie-based decks, because you can power it up in a turn. But I don't think it's going to be the backbone of anything major. It could be a nice one-off tech. But I think it's no more than that. But it's interesting either way. The first Sparkling Pokemon is Sparkling Greninja. Water type, 130 HP basic Pokemon. Sparkling Pokemon rule, as I mentioned earlier on, you can't have more than one Sparkling Pokemon in your deck, so you're going to have to pick basically which Sparkling Pokemon you want to play. But I think we're going to be spoiled for choice, is what I expect, so that's pretty exciting. Has the ability Concealed Card. Once during a turn, you may discard an energy card from your hand, then draw 2 cards. That's pretty good. That's basically, it's a slightly more restricted trade or make do, or whatever the Lipard's ability is, because you have to discard an energy card. But that's definitely something that's quite feasible. In my mind, this works really well with a lot of things. It works really well with Metal and Dark decks, as I've mentioned. It doesn't matter that this isn't a Dark type or Metal type Pokemon, because you're going to have lots of Pokemon to attach with your Metal sources anyway. So you can play this regardless, and you can just discard it. You're always then going to have your Metal sources and Dark Patches live, which is really good, as well as having additional draw. It also really works quite well with Melanie as well. We're starting to get to the point where Melanie decks do have a lot of ways of discarding water energy, which is great, but having more ways is always going to be good with additional draw, because Melanie doesn't provide the most draw. That's great, and in general, yeah, just being able to make sure your Melanie is active is really, really important. So yeah, I actually really like this ability. I think it will see play in a lot of different scenarios. I expect this is... I never played in a format with... or I never built decks in a format with Gold Star Pokemon. And Prism Stars were kind of different. But I did play in a format with Ace Specs. And basically, because you could only run one, that meant these cards were really powerful. And as such, basically everyone ran one. So I think this is... a really, really nice one to have if you want some some reasons to discard energy, some additional benefits from discarding energy. Yeah, it's a really, really nice one to have. And then the attack is even strong as well. If you are able to power this up, the attack is crazy. Moonlight Shuriken for 3 energy. Discard 2 energy from this Pokemon and do 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. 3 for 2 90 snipes is absolutely bonkers. Especially if we're in a format where people are like taking a hit with these V-Stars and V-Maxes and just retreating to the bench. So yeah, really, really strong attack. I don't know how we're ever powering it up, so it might never really see play. But I think it is a really, really strong attack, to be honest. So it's definitely worth noting. This card is like crazy good for things like gym leader format and stuff. Because it's already a one-off format anyway. You get to play this as a one-off with basically no restriction, because all of the other cards are a one-off, so it's no harder to find than any other card. It's great draw potential for that format, which is it's a format that really likes it. And in that kind of format, you do have time to set up an attack like this, and it's crazy strong in that format. So I actually expect Sparkling Greninja to be very, very strong, maybe even too strong. But I don't know much about Gym Leader format. All I know is if I'm playing a format where I'm only allowed to play one prize Pokemon, and actually no. maybe Gym Leader format states rulebox Pokemon, so you probably can't play this in your deck, right? Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Gym Leader format actually states you can't play rulebox Pokemon. So yeah, because these cards are considered as rulebox Pokemon, they will also be shut off by Path to the Peak and all that kind of stuff as well. That's worth noting. But yeah, I'm getting a little bit confused there. You can't actually play this in Gym Leader format, I'm 99% sure, because I don't think it states single prizes. I think it states non-rulebox Pokemon. So yeah, that's probably really good, because I think this would have been crazy strong for Gym Leader format. Okay, the second one that's been revealed is Sparkling Lucha, fighting type 90 HP. Saying that it's got that same Sparkling Pokemon rule, and the ability Big Match. If this Pokemon is on your bench, your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon VMAX. That's crazy. That's absolutely bananas, right? Because that means that plus Choice Belt basically pushes your damage up by 60 against VMAX, which is very strong. I actually think they're beginning to push us away from VMAXs. I think they're releasing a lot of reasons to not play VMAXs right now, because we have Choice Belt, plus the disparity in HP is like 40 to 50 to 60 maybe, between V-Stars and VMAXs, and I would rather play a 2-prizer and only lose 60 HP, especially if I'm essentially losing 30 HP just by my opponent having a Hawlucha on the board. So yeah, I think this ability could even push us away from a VMAX format, which is very strong and very interesting. There's obviously still going to be some great VMAXs out there, but I think even some of the Inteleon decks, like the Inteleon engine-based VMAX decks, may look a little bit worse, because again, this is super splashable. You don't need anything to be playing this card, right? You don't need to have additional synergy. It probably is potentially even better than the concealed card Sparkling Greninja if you don't want the energy discards, if you're playing a low energy deck. It's potentially even better than that. So yeah, I think this is a very, very strong ability, and I think this could warp the meta somewhat into pushing us even further into V-Stars, which I think was going to happen naturally anyway, but it could happen at a slightly accelerated rate because of this. So yeah, this card is very, very strong, I think. We've seen Diancie do well. That was all of your fighting Pokemon to all Pokemon. So I think it probably was a little bit stronger than this, or at least on par with this. This is more damage, but limited to one type of Pokemon. But the type of Pokemon it's hitting often nets you 3 prizes, which is halfway to winning the game. So yeah, this is I think a very, very strong card. For anyone that doesn't really want... I mean, we're going to see more of these theoretically, but yeah, for anyone that doesn't want energy discard synergies, I think Sparkling Hawlucha is a very, very natural include, which is cool. Garchomp V is a Dragon-type basic Pokemon with 200 HP. It has Dragon Claw as its first attack for 120 damage flat, and then Water, Fighting Colorless does Sonic Strike. You discard 3 energy from this Pokemon, and you do 220 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. That's a lot of damage. That's knocking out basically any evolving V. So yeah, that's a huge amount of damage. The issue is trying to accelerate this. We do have the new Pickaxe. We do have Melanie, which you can actually accelerate this to, which is interesting. We also do have things like Arceus V-Star that can accelerate to this. So I don't think this is a complete write-off, but this energy cost is very, very heavy. Me and Joe were having a discussion last night, and it kind of feels similar to Flygon, where if you're using it with Arceus, you're able to attach a load of energy to your Garchomp. There's so much access to boss right now with the reprint, or with Luminion being printed, and Ultra Ball and Quick Ball and all of that kind of stuff. There's so much access to boss right now. I think it's going to be quite hard pressed to try and set up a Garchomp V for next turn, because if it's going to be a threat, they will just KO it, right? So yeah, I'm a little bit hard pressed to say this is super strong, but especially with Arceus. But maybe we have enough sort of synergy between Melanie and well, not synergy. There's no synergy at all between Melanie and the Pickaxe, but maybe we have enough acceleration between Melanie and the Pickaxe to try and make this work. You're gonna have to play Awkward Energy though. So I think it is a little bit glamorous. It feels a little bit like Flygon, a very glamorous attack. That's my alarm going off to wake up this morning. I think it's a very glamorous attack, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be one that does too much overall, which is a shame because Garchomp is really cool. There's a couple of really interesting products coming out, and this is where we're going to see the Lucario V and V Union and Darkrai V and V Union, not V Union, V-Star, that we'd previously seen or previously heard about. First up is Lucario. Lucario has Crush Punch for 2 colorless energy that is 50. And you discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Not terrible. Some decent chip damage. Again, unfortunately, not the greatest damage, so double turbo is going to reduce that down to 30, but hey-ho. And then Cyclone Kick for 120. This is very much kind of filler, I feel. To set up for Lucario V-Star, which has 270 HP and is a V-Star Pokemon, so we know this is a Pokemon that gives up 2 prizes, and essentially has a very, very strong once per game effect. So the usual attack is Fighting Knuckle for 120, and if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon V, this attack is 120 more. This damage is actually pretty interesting, because a Fighting plus Double Turbo pushes this to 220 rather than 240, but 220 is still enough to one-shot all non-evolving V or evolving V Pokemon. So it still does good enough numbers to be able to knock those out, and you're never doing enough numbers to... well, you're not never doing enough numbers, but it kind of makes your V-Star map a little bit awkward. You're never doing enough numbers to KOA V-Max, because basically you're capped at 300, right? If you're not using a double turbo, because you have the 240 base damage plus Hawlucha plus Choice Belt, so that's capped at 300, so you'd have to play like an Inteleon engine with it anyway, to be able to get to 320, which still sounds quite plausible, to be honest. But you also have... but V-Stars... it's a little bit awkward. You're capped at 270 because Hawlucha doesn't work on V-Stars. For a lot of V-Stars, that'll be enough. But for things like Arceus and Charizard, it's not. Oh, wait, Arceus has weakness. Okay, yeah. Ignore me. This card is really, really quite strong, I think. Basically, the way I see this is like Fighting Energy plus a handful of double turbos. You have the Energy Acceleration with the Pickaxe, and you have maybe like an Oranguru engine. I could see that maybe working. I'm not opposed to that too much. I think the damage, like I said, the damage is really interesting. Being able to do 220 against these non-evolving Vs, or non-evolved Vs, is really good tempo, because you can just kind of gust them up. We've seen 220 as a really strong number from things like Victini VMAX. This requires a little bit more setup, because it requires an extra energy. But it's still pretty interesting. And now we have double turbo, that's plausible. Okay, this is slightly better than I thought, because I forgot Arceus had weakness. And obviously you also have weakness on Darkrai, which looks to be pretty good as well. So the only V-Star you're not one-shotting is Charizard, and I think that's okay. And then the VMAXs, again, you're probably not one-shotting, unless you're playing like an Inteleon engine, maybe. But yeah. We'll have to look at some breakpoints with the numbers, but it is slightly better than I first thought this morning when I read it, because it does hit a couple of key ones for weakness, so it doesn't matter that you're playing double turbo. Interesting, cool. And then the Aura Star V-Star power does 70 damage, and this attack does 70 damage times the number of energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon. So yeah, again, another big blow-up attack. Ironically, one of the decks, or the 2 decks that really build up a lot of energy on board at Arceus and probably Darkrai, and they're the 2 decks you don't need to do this huge blow-up attack with, because you have weakness on them anyway. So that's quite weird. But yeah, it means you only need 4 energy. Yeah, 4 energy plus Choice Belt is 310, plus Hawlucha is 340. So yeah, you can definitely hit into VMAX numbers with this attack with just 4 energy. It looks like it says energy attached. I'm hoping that'll be the translation. If it's energy cards, it's a bit worse. But if it's energy attached, it will take into account things like double turbo as well. So yeah, pretty interesting card. A lot better than I initially gave it credit for. I read this morning and thought, this is just always going to fall slightly short, which is a shame. But having weakness on the 2 best V-Stars is pretty good. And like I say, you're probably never getting to VMAX range, but that might be okay still. If you're playing an Inteleon engine, you can, because you can do Hawlucha, Band, Pings. But yeah, interesting. And then finally we have Darkrai V and V-Star. Darkrai V has the pretty simple attack, 2 for 50, and then 3 for 310? 130, I should say, and the active Pokemon is now asleep. It's going to be, you're going to be quite hard pressed to be actually attacking with Dark Hole, but at least it gives you a little bit of copium in putting them asleep. The real star is Darkrai V-Star, which is very exciting. Dark Pulse does 30 plus 30 for each Dark Energy attached to your Pokemon. So if you're playing purely Dark Energy, this is going to be powered up by Dark Energy. So this is doing base 90 plus 30 for every other Dark on your board, which is great. Like I say, we have the Dark Patch reprint. We even have things like Turbo Patch, which could be pretty interesting. But I think between 4 Dark Patches, Moltres, Baby Moltres, and Star Abyss, the V-Star power, you're going to have more than enough ways to attach energy, so you probably don't need to play things like Turbo Patch. But yeah, I think you're going to actually be able to hit VMAX numbers, and V-Star numbers. Not super, not always straight out the gate on turn 1, but definitely moving into turns 2, 3, and 4 of the game. I think it's plausible that you're going to be able to do that, which is really interesting. You also have things like Hooper V that you can play in the deck that now we have Turbo Patch we can attach to, and we have an answer to... Wait, this isn't weak to fighting. Hold on, I've only just noticed that. Wow. Okay, rewind a little bit on what I said here. This isn't fighting, which means... Wow, okay, I'm quite surprised at that. I just kind of thought this was a given, this would be weak to fighting. This is not weak to fighting. Yeah, okay. Well, Hooper seems a bit worse now because you're not weak to fighting, so you're not as scared of fighting. That's quite funny. I'm glad I did double check that. But yeah, okay. Interesting. I mean, still playing Hooper V is perfectly plausible. Hooper is a card that already has seen a bit of experimentation. So, yeah, having 2 types in one card is pretty good. Even if you're not weak to fighting, just being able to one-punch fighting matchups super easily is pretty cool. So, yeah, very, very strong attack. I think, realistically, this is going to be pretty strong, at least on first impressions. Star Abyss is one of the biggest reasons why. During your turn, you may search your discard pile for up to 2 item cards and put them into your hand. This can be double Dark Patch. This can be ball search cards. It basically means you can never brick, theoretically, right? Because you can always get a ball search card for a Crobat or an Luminion or an Eldegoss or anything like that out of your discard pile, which is crazy. But yeah, I think a lot of the time this is probably just going to end up being double Turbo Patch, which is quite funny. I hope this doesn't turn into double Hammers. That would be really disappointing. But yeah, this card seems very strong. I think the archetype is kind of being given to us on a plate, but that's okay. Yeah, really, really interesting. Pretty excited to try this one out. And I actually told you a small white lie. We do have one more card. It's a Hooper. Hooper has Genie Hand. Search your deck for a Dark Energy and attach it to one of your Pokemon. So if you start Hooper, you at least get your energy attachment back. I think a lot of the time you won't want to be attaching to Hooper. Well, I was going to say you don't want to be attaching to Hooper, but because you get your energy attachment back and we have Dark Patch and we like 1 prizes in this meta, it might actually be fine to be playing Hoopers in the deck if you're going second on your first turn to get an energy attachment on the board. Because worst comes to the worst, they don't attack the Hooper, you can then switch and you have an extra energy for next turn. So yeah, thinking about it, this might be a little bit more playable than I thought. I thought it was too slow, but I think 1 prizes are quite premium right now, especially in a deck like a V-Star deck where you want to be skewing the prize trade. So playing some Hoopers in the early game, or at least a Hooper in the early game, could be quite interesting just to, poke, well not poke, but attach, get an energy on the board. You either lose the Hooper and force the 7 prize game, or you keep the Hooper and keep an extra 30 damage. So yeah, it seems a little bit better than I thought. I expect that the deck will probably play a couple, 1 or 2 maybe, and some balloons and that kind of thing. Obviously, there's plenty of time for various cards to be released that will change all of that. But yeah, very interesting stuff. I'm never too opposed to seeing a Turbo deck back, so I don't mind seeing Turbo deck reappear, Turbo Dark reappear. So yeah, pretty interesting. It's funny that we're seeing all of these cards before we've even had Brilliant Stars released in English yet. But this always happens. Japan are always a little bit ahead of us, so it was bound to happen. So yeah, thanks for listening. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to my first impressions of some of these new cards. And other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Omnipoke, and I will see you guys in another video soon. Cheers.